Okay, so let's talk about our past continuous tense. All right, past continuous, or some might even say call it past progressive. All right. All right, so let's look at what the past progressive or continuous past continuous tense is. The past progressive or the past continuous tense is a form of the verb that shows the action or state was in progress, continued into the past. Okay? So here again, because we're using the continuous, right? The form is the base form of the verb plus ing. In this case, we're talking about past. So now we can say was plus the past plus the base form of the verb plus ing. For example, Lisa was dancing yesterday at 8 o'clock. Here we're showing that Lisa was, that's the past, dancing, verb plus ing, which is continuous, yesterday at 8 o'clock. All right? So now let's take a look at a story. Our past continuous tense story. The questions we have to ask ourselves is, who was she? Where was she? What was happening? Okay? So now it would be a good time to pause the video and to read this for yourself. And then when you come back, I'm going to read it out loud, and then we will move into our exercises. All right. So let's pause the video now and read this, and then we'll come back. Okay. So hopefully you had some time to read the story. So now I'm going to read it, and then we will work on some exercises. Yesterday, it was raining and thundering all day. Anne was playing inside the house. She wanted to be outside. She wasn't playing outside because it was raining. She was feeling tired of being trapped inside the house. Anne was trying to keep busy inside the house. She was reading her book until the electricity went out. Then she decided to practice her sewing. She was practicing sewing until lunchtime. After lunch, she sat by the window and watched the rain. While Anne was watching the rain, the phone rang. Her mother was calling to say that she was coming home. She was bringing a new game. Anne and her mother ate ice cream and played the game. While they were playing, the rain stopped. But Anne didn't even notice. She was having such a good time with her mom. Okay. So now we know what the story is about. Let's look at some exercises. A. Answer the following questions. Use the past progressive tense. The questions are: 1. Where was Anna playing yesterday? Why wasn't she playing outside? 2. What was Anne doing before the electricity went out? What was she doing until lunchtime? And then number 3. At the end of the story, the rain stopped. What was Anne doing? Okay, so now it'd be a good time to pause the video, go back to the story, and let's try to answer these questions in complete English sentences using the past progressive tense this time, the past continuous tense. Okay? So let's do that now. Take your time. This might be a little challenging, but take your time, and then we'll come back and I will share my answers with you. Okay, so hopefully you had enough time to pause the video and to answer the questions using the past progressive tense and full complete English sentences. So now let's go over this and I will share what I wrote. Number 1, where was Anne playing yesterday? Why wasn't she playing outside? I wrote, Anne was playing inside. To answer the second question, or the second part, she wasn't playing outside because it was raining. Okay? Number 2, what was Anne doing before the electricity went out? What was she doing until lunchtime? I wrote, before the electricity went out, comma, Anne was reading. To answer the second part, she was practicing her sewing until lunchtime. Number 3, at the end of the story, the rain stopped. What was Anne doing? I wrote, at the end of the story, comma, Anne was playing a game and eating ice cream with her mother. Okay? So those are my answers, and hopefully you got something similar. Alright? The biggest thing here was, of course, to answer these questions using the past continuous tense. Alright? So let's move on to B. Rewrite the following sentences as negative sentences, yes or no questions, WH questions using the underlined word or phrase, and tag questions. Now here again, we're not going to use tag questions, but we will rewrite these sentences using negative sentences, yes, no questions, and WH questions. Alright? And the thing here is we have to use the past continuous tense. So the examples for the sentence is, Sam was watching a movie last night. Okay, was watching. The underlined part is, the underlined word or phrase is watching a movie. Alright? So if we rewrite this sentence using using the negative, or in the negative, we would write, Sam was not watching a movie last night. If we were rewriting the sentence to become a yes or no question, we would write, was Sam watching a movie last night? And then finally, to change this into a WH question, we would write, what was Sam doing last night? And here we use what as our WH. Okay? So let's look at our sentences. Here's our exercise. 1, 2, and 3. The first sentence is, Anne was playing inside the house. Number 2, her mother was calling. Number 3, she was bringing a new game. Okay, so now let's take some time, let's pause the video, take some time to answer 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to rewrite these sentences as negative, yes or no questions, and WH questions. Alright? And then when we come back, I'll share my answers, and hopefully we've got something similar or the same. Alright, so let's pause the video now and do that. Okay, so hopefully you had enough time to go through these questions, go through these examples and exercises. So let me share what I wrote for my answers. Alright, so number 1, Anne was playing inside the house. If I'm rewriting this as a negative, I would say Anne is not playing inside the house. If I'm rewriting this as a yes or no question, I would say, was Anne playing inside the house? And if I was rewriting this as a WH question, I would write, who was playing inside the house? Okay. Number 2, her mother was calling. If I rewrote this as a negative, I would say her mother was not calling. If I rewrote this as a WH question, I would say or write, who was calling? And I'm sorry, if I was rewriting this as a yes or no question, I would say, was her mother calling? Okay, and if I was writing it as a WH question, that's when I would write, who was calling? Okay, sorry for the confusion there. Alright, number 3. She was bringing a new game. So the negative is she was not bringing a new game. The yes or no question would be, was she bringing a new game? And then the WH question would be, what was she doing? So on that one I use what. What was she doing? Okay. So let me share my answers again with you. Number 1, the negative, Anne was not playing inside the house. Yes, no question. Was Anne playing inside the house? WH question, who was playing inside the house? Number 2, the negative is her mother was not calling. Yes or no question, was her mother calling? WH question, who was calling? Number 3, she was bringing a new game. So the negative is she was not bringing a new game. The yes-no question is, was she bringing a new game? And then the WH question is, what was she doing? So again, on this one, for my WH question, I use what. What was she doing? Alright, so hopefully we got very similar answers. There could be some variation, some differences between us, which is no problem, which is good, as long as we're using the past continuous tense when we're answering our questions. Okay? Alright, so let's move on. Now we're going to look at the present perfect progressive tense. Alright, we saved the hard one for last. I think it's hard because it's a lot here, but it's a lot to say. Present perfect progressive tense. So let's remind ourselves what that means. Present perfect progressive tense. The present perfect progressive or continuous tense is a form of the verb that shows the action or state started in the past and is continued until the present. Okay, something that started in the past and continues to the present. For example, Lisa has been dancing for 3 hours without stopping. This means Lisa started dancing in the past and she's now continuing to dance. Alright, she started dancing 3 hours ago and she's still dancing, and she has not stopped. Okay? Alright, so let's look at let's look at the story. Our present perfect progressive tense story. We have to ask ourselves, who are they? What have they been doing? Where have they been going? Alright? So now would be a good time to pause the video and to read this story for yourself and understand how they have written it in present perfect progressive tense and what the story is talking about. And when we come back, I will read the story, and then we will do the exercises that follow. All right, so let's pause the video now and read the story, and then we'll come back. Okay, so hopefully you had some time to read the story. Let's go over this together. Ruth and Martha are best friends. They have been spending time together since they were young girls. Every morning, they get dressed and walk to the post office together. They have been walking together to the post office every morning for the past 10 years. Lately, Martha has not been feeling well. Ruth has been walking to the post office alone each morning. Then she visits Martha at home. She has been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks. She hopes Martha feels better soon. Okay, so now we know what our present perfect progressive story says. Let's look at some exercises to help us to practice using the present progressive tense. A. Answer the following questions. Use the present perfect progressive tense. Question number 1. How long have Ruth and Martha been spending time together? For how many years have they been walking together to the post office? Number 2. How has Martha been feeling lately? Number 3. How long has Ruth been visiting Martha and bringing her mail? Okay, so now let's take some time, pause the video, and answer these questions using the present perfect progressive tense. Alright, and then we'll come back and I will answer these questions using what I came up with, and hopefully we'll have very similar answers. Alright, so let's pause the video and do that now. Okay, so now let's go over the answers, at least the answers that I got. Okay, number 1, how long have Ruth and Martha been spending time together? For how many years have they been walking together to the post office? I wrote, Ruth and Martha have been spending time together since they were young girls. They have been walking together to the post office for 10 years. All right. Number 2, how has Martha been feeling lately? I wrote, Martha has not been feeling well lately. Number 3, for how long has Ruth been visiting Martha and bringing her mail? I wrote, Ruth has been visiting Martha and bringing Martha her mail for 2 weeks. Okay? So that's how I wrote those. Hopefully you got something similar. It doesn't have to be perfectly, it doesn't have to match mine perfectly, right? The big thing is just to practice using the present perfect progressive tense. Got it. All right, let's move on to B. Rewrite the following sentences as negative sentences, yes or no questions, WH questions using the underlined word or phrase, and tag questions. Of course, we're not going to be using the tag questions. Our example for writing this in the present perfect progressive tense is Walter has been washing the car for 30 minutes. The negative way to write this is Walter has not been washing the car for 30 minutes. Yes or no question would be, has Walter been washing the car for 30 minutes? And then the WH question would be, who has been washing the car for 30 minutes? Okay, they used the who here for the WH question. Alright, so now let's look at our examples, our exercise. Number 1, they have been spending time together since they were young girls. Number 2, Ruth has been walking to the post office alone each morning. Number 3, she has been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks. Okay, so now it's time to pause the video and let's rewrite these sentences as a negative sentence, yes or no question, and a WH question using the present perfect progressive tense. Alright, so let's pause the video and do that now, and then we'll come back and I'll show you my answers, and hopefully we have something similar. Alright. Okay, so let's answer some questions here. Let's do this exercise. Number 1, they have been spending time together since they were young girls. The negative is they have not been spending time together since they were young girls. The yes or no question I wrote was, have they been spending time together since they were young girls? And then the WH question would be, who has been spending time together since they were young girls? So for this WH question, I used who. Number 2, Ruth has been walking to the post office alone each morning. The negative sentence is, Ruth has not been walking to the post office alone each morning. The yes or no question is that I wrote is, has Ruth been walking to the post office alone each morning? And then the WH question that I wrote was, who has been walking to the post office alone each morning? Alright, number 3, she has been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks. The negative would be, she has not been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks. The yes/no question that I wrote was, has she been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks? And then the WH question that I chose was, who has been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks? Okay? So, again, number 1, the negative is they have not been spending time together since they were young girls. Yes or no question, have they been spending time together since they were young girls? WH question, who has been spending time together since they were young girls? Number 2, Ruth has been walking to the post office alone each morning. Negative is Ruth has not been walking to the post office alone each morning. Yes or no question, has Ruth been walking to the post office alone each morning? And then the WH question is, who has been walking to the post office alone each morning? And then number 3, finally, the negative. She has not been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks. Yes, no question. Has she been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks? And then the WH question that I chose was who has been bringing Martha her mail every morning for 2 weeks? Okay, so those are my answers. Hopefully we got something similar. And this is the end of our review. So it was great teaching. It was a little difficult, I know, doing this through video. Please don't forget to register for the next semester. All right? And you can always tell the administrator which level you feel comfortable with. All right? I know that doing this through video was a little challenging, and it's harder to get the time to actually practice, especially when you don't have people around you that can practice English with you, or if you just are so busy you just don't have the time. When we are in class together, we set aside the time to drive out and sit in the class and actually do the work with people around us, which helps a lot. But again, I know this was tough, so hopefully next semester we'll be back in the class in some sort of fashion. If not, I guess we will keep going with the videos. But either way, I'll be here to help. And if you can find the time to do Zoom meetings, I will definitely set them up and we can practice face-to-face through video. All right? So until then, until next semester, have a good break. We have some time off. Rest your mind. Hopefully you can take a rest, period. And I will see you next time. All right? And I wish you the best of luck continuing your journey trying to learn the English language. You know, it's hard, it's crazy, and it's nuts, right? So good luck. All right. Take care.